The sound that ended her childhood was not loud. It was a small, final click. The kind of sound most people would forget in a second. But for 18-year-old Analise Carter, it echoed like a verdict. It meant she no longer had a home. She stood on the porch, the cold wood pressing through the thin soles of her boots, staring at the closed door that would not open again. The late autumn air had already turned sharp, carrying the dry scent of coming winter. In her hand, she held everything she owned. A small pouch of coins, $17, and a brittle piece of paper, a deed. Behind the window, a pale face watched her. Her younger brother, silent, helpless. He did not knock. He did not speak. And she did not look back. Because sometimes, looking back breaks you more than leaving. Yet she stepped off the porch and onto the dirt road, the gravel crunching under her feet like a slow, steady reminder that there was no turning around now. If you've ever had a moment where life forced you forward, even when you weren't ready, you'll understand what she carried that day. Not just weight in her hands, but weight in her chest. The town of Silver Creek came into view by late afternoon. Smoke curled from chimneys. Warm light spilled from windows. The smell of bread and cured meat drifted through the air like a memory of something she no longer belonged to. Inside the mercantile, the bell above the door rang softly. Heads turned. They saw a girl with dust on her boots and uncertainty in her eyes. They had seen that look before. It never ended well. Behind the counter stood Mr. Gable, yet a man who had measured more lives in quiet judgment than in words. He adjusted his spectacles and looked down at the paper she placed before him. The deed. His fingers ran over the faded ink as if it might change under pressure. But it did not. He let out a slow breath. "The Hollow Rock claim," he said. His voice carried no surprise, only resignation. He looked up at her, and for a moment something like sympathy flickered, before fading into something colder. "That land isn't worth keeping warm," he added. "Stone, ravine, no water worth speaking of." A man nearby gave a quiet chuckle. "Only thing lives there," he said, "is snakes hiding from the sun." The words settled in the room like dust. Analise did not react. She simply looked at the shelves behind the counter. Flour, salt, tools, everything needed to survive a winter. Downer then she looked at the coins in her hand. $17. Not enough for comfort, not enough for safety, just enough to choose a direction. Mr. Gable tapped the counter lightly. "You could take a coach east," he said. "Start over somewhere bigger, somewhere easier." Easier. The word sounded hollow, because easier often meant starting from nothing, in a place that did not care if you survived. She closed her fingers around the coins. Then she made a choice that no one in that room understood. "I'll need an axe," she said quietly. The room went still. "And a bow saw," she continued. "Flour, salt, beans." Mr. Gable studied her face, searching for doubt. He did not find it, only something harder, something steady. He packed her supplies without another word. Outside, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in fading gold, and with every step she took away from Silver Creek, she walked further from safety and deeper into something no one believed she could survive. The journey took 2 days, 2 long, unforgiving days. The road disappeared quickly, swallowed by broken land and scattered stone. The ground turned uneven. The wind grew sharper. Every step became a decision. The sack of flour cut into her shoulders like a punishment she could not escape. She rested often, but never for long, because stopping too long in a place like that meant giving up. By the second evening, the land no longer felt like something meant for people. It felt like something meant to test them. And then she saw it, a wall of gray stone rising from the earth, cold, silent, immovable. At its base, a dark opening. The cave saw her inheritance. For a moment, she stood there without moving. This was it. This was everything she had been given. A hole in the ground. A place no one wanted. A place no one believed in. The wind pushed against her back, cold and insistent, as if urging her to leave before it was too late. And for a brief, dangerous moment, she almost listened. Because despair is quiet. It doesn't shout. It simply asks one question. What if they were right? She stepped closer. The air near the cave felt different. Still, not warm, but not cruel either. She lit a small flame and walked inside. The darkness swallowed the light at first, pressing in from every side. The ground beneath her boots shifted from rough gravel to smooth stone. And then the space opened. A wide chamber. Silent. Ancient. She stood there, breathing slowly, and listening. Then she heard it. A soft sound. A single drop of water falling into stone. She followed it. And there, hidden within the rock, she saw it. A slow, steady drip. Clear water. Clean. Alive. She touched the wall beside it. The stone held a quiet coolness, but not the biting cold of the wind outside. It held something else. Stability. The kind of steady that does not change with the weather. In that moment, something shifted inside her. The cave was not empty. It was not useless. It was shelter from wind, protection from frost, a place where temperature did not fall with the night, a place where something could survive, maybe even grow. The people of Silver Creek had seen a grave, but standing there, in that stillness, Analise Carter saw something else entirely. She saw a beginning, and for the first time since that door had closed behind her, she did not feel alone. She felt ready, but she did not yet know. That winter was already on its way, and it was coming faster than anyone in Silver Creek expected. Winter did not arrive gently. It came like a warning no one could stop. The first frost touched the ground before Analise had finished her walls. Each morning, the air cut deeper. Each night, the cold stayed longer. And every day, the work grew heavier. She woke before light, her body aching in ways she had never known before. Her hands were no longer soft. They were torn, blistered, hardened into tools of survival. When she closed them around the axe, there was no hesitation left. Only purpose. The plan in her mind was simple, but nothing about it was easy. The cave would be the heart, and the cabin would be the shield. Together, they might become a home. She found the trees in a narrow stretch of ravine, small pines twisted by wind and time. They were not strong or perfect, but they were enough. Her first swing of the axe was clumsy. The second was worse. The blade stuck. The wood resisted. But she did not stop. She adjusted her grip, changed her stance, learned with every strike. The sound of steel biting into wood became her rhythm. By the time the first tree finally cracked and fell, the sound echoed through the ravine like something alive. It startled her. Then it steadied her. Because that sound meant something important. It meant she could change the world around her, one piece at a time. Dragging the logs back to the cave was harder than cutting them. She could not lift them. And so she learned to move them, rolling them over branches, sliding them down slopes, using the land itself to do the work her body could not. It took hours to move a single log. Some days, only one. But she did not measure progress in speed. She measured it in inches, in effort, in the simple fact that the pile of logs near the cave was growing. And that meant she was winning. By the end of the first week, the outline of her future stood on the ground. Flat stones, carefully placed, formed a rough rectangle, 12 steps long, 8 steps wide. It was small, but it was hers. Food was already becoming a problem. Flour mixed with water, cooked thin, barely enough to hold strength in her bones. Still, she kept working, because stopping meant losing everything. Yet there comes a moment in survival when comfort no longer matters, only continuation. If you've ever pushed through something when your body said stop, you understand that moment. It is quiet, but it changes you. The first wall took days. Each log had to be lifted, guided, balanced. She built a simple frame from rope and wood to help her raise them. It creaked under the strain, threatening to break with every lift. More than once, a log slipped. More than once, she nearly went down with it. But she adapted. Slowly, carefully, until one wall stood. Rough, uneven, but standing. When she stepped back and looked at it, something inside her settled. Not relief, not pride. Something deeper. Proof. Proof that she could build something that would not fall. And the gaps between the logs were wide enough for the wind to pass through like a knife, so she filled them. Mud, grass, water, pushed into every crack with cold, numb fingers. It was messy work, uncomfortable. But when she stepped inside and the wind no longer touched her face, it felt like a miracle. Inside, the air held still, and stillness meant control. The next task was the one that mattered most. Heat. Without it, everything else would fail. She chose a section of the rock wall and began stacking stone. Carefully. Slowly. A fireplace. A chimney. Each stone placed with purpose. Each layer tested with patience. The first time she lit a fire, it filled the cabin with smoke. Thick. Choking. Blinding. For a moment, she stood there coughing, eyes burning. Failure pressed in again. But she did not give in to it. And she studied the flow, found the blockage, cleared the path, and tried again. This time, the smoke rose, a thin line disappearing into the rock above, and warmth stayed. She sat by the fire that night, her back against the rough wall, her hands stretched toward the flames. The heat soaked into her bones, and for the first time since she arrived, she felt safe. Not fully, not completely, but enough. The cave came next. Its darkness no longer frightened her. Now it felt like something waiting to be used. She carried soil from the ravine, bucket after bucket, trip after tour after trip. Her arms trembled, her back burned, but she kept going. Because she understood something now. The cave was more than shelter. It was possibility. She shaped the soil into small raised beds near the entrance, where faint light reached. And then she planted what little she had. Carrots, winter greens. It was not much, but it was hope. Deeper inside, she built simple pens from branches, a place for animals, a place for life. By the time the first snow touched the distant peaks, her system was ready. Not perfect, not complete, but alive. Her food stores were nearly gone. Her strength was thinning, And winter was no longer a threat in the distance. It was coming. Fast. She stood outside one evening, the sky dim and heavy, the air carrying that silent warning only the land understands. She had one choice left: return to Silver Creek, not for comfort, not for safety, but for what she needed to survive what was coming. The walk back felt different this time. She was no longer the girl who had left. Something in her had hardened. Quietly. Completely. But when she stepped into the mercantile again, the bell rang the same. But the room did not feel the same. Mr. Gable looked up, and this time, he did not see uncertainty. He saw something else, something he did not expect. "You're still alive," he said. A simple sentence, but it carried surprise, and something close to disbelief. A few men turned again, the trapper among them. He gave a low shake of his head. "That land will bury you when the storms hit," he muttered. "You picked your grave." Analise did not answer, because she no longer needed to explain herself. She walked to the counter and placed what little money she had left. "I need hens," she said, her voice steady, "and sheep, a ewe and a ram." The room went quiet again. Mr. Gable stared at her for a long moment. "You'll lose them before winter ends," he said. "The cold will take them." She met his eyes. "That is my concern." He said nothing more. The exchange was made. Coins for life. Doubt for silence. When she walked out of Silver Creek with chickens in a crate and sheep pulling against the rope, people stopped to watch. Some shook their heads. Some whispered. Some pitied. They believed they were watching a mistake, a slow, certain end. But as Analise led those animals back across the broken land, step by step, toward the cave no one believed in, she was not walking toward failure. She was walking toward something no one else could yet see, and far above her. The sky began to darken, not with night, but with something heavier, something colder, something that would soon test everything she had built, and everyone who had doubted her. The storm did not knock, but it arrived like a force that did not care who was ready. The sky turned a hard, lifeless gray. The wind began as a whisper, then rose into a steady, growing roar that pressed against the land like something alive. Analise felt it before she saw it, a deep vibration through the rock, a warning from the only thing she trusted. She moved quickly. The animals were secured inside the cave. The door to the cabin was braced with a heavy log. The fire was built strong, steady, ready to last. Then the first snow came. Not soft, not gentle. It struck the ground like sand, sharp and fast, driven sideways by a wind that howled without rest. Within hours, the world outside disappeared. The window went white. The air outside turned violent. But inside, everything changed. The fire crackled low and steady. The air held warmth, yet the walls did not shake, and behind her, inside the cave, there was silence. Not the silence of emptiness, the silence of protection. The sheep rested calmly, their breath slow and even. The chickens tucked themselves into corners, quiet and safe. The small patch of green near the entrance still lived, fragile but defiant. Analise stood between the two worlds, the storm and the stillness. And for the first time, she understood something clearly. She was not surviving the storm. She was outside of it. This was not luck. This was design. This was choice. Days passed, though time lost its shape. Morning began with fire. Night ended with fire. Her life moved in simple patterns now. Feed the animals, check the water, tend the plants, guard the heat. Every action mattered. Every small task held the weight of survival. But in the middle of it all, something quiet settled inside her. Not fear, not even relief. Control. The kind that comes when you build your life with your own hands. And then, it came. A sound that did not belong. At first, it was faint, almost lost in the roar of the storm. A dull, uneven pounding. Analise froze. She listened again. There it was. Not wind, not wood. Something else. Something desperate. Her hand closed around the iron poker by the fire. The weight of it steadied her breathing. The pounding came again, weaker this time. Then a voice, barely more than a broken whisper. For a moment, fear took hold. Out here, in a storm like this, no one should be alive. And if they were either dying or dangerous. She moved slowly toward the door, her heartbeat loud in the quiet warmth of the cabin. She lifted the brace, pulled the door open just enough, and the storm forced its way in like a living thing. A shape collapsed forward into the room, covered in snow. Barely human. She slammed the door shut and dragged the body closer to the fire. The snow melted. The face appeared, and she recognized him. The trapper. The same man who had called her home a grave. His lips were blue, his breathing shallow, his body shaking beyond control. "Wagon," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Gable, his wife, lost." The words hit harder than the storm outside. 3 lives, not 1. 3. Analise stood there, staring at the man on her floor. The fire behind her burned steady. The food on the stove was meant for 1. The wood she had cut was counted, measured, rationed. Everything she had built was balanced, fragile, precise. Taking them in could break it. It could cost her everything. For a moment, the memory returned. The whispers, the pity, the quiet judgment. Poor girl. She won't last. A part of her, cold and tired, wanted to turn away, to protect what she had fought for, to survive alone. But survival had already changed her. She looked at the man again, not as someone who had mocked her, but as someone who was about to die. And something inside her answered with quiet certainty. Help is not about who deserves it. It is about who can give it. She wrapped the trapper in her only spare blanket. Then she prepared for something far harder than building walls. She prepared to step back into the storm. The cold hit her like a blow. The wind tore at her clothes, stealing her breath, blinding her with flying snow. Each step was a fight. The world was gone. There was no land, no sky. Only white chaos. She followed the rock wall, her only guide. Step after step. Slow, heavy, endless. Until, finally, a shape appeared. Dark, broken. The wagon, half buried, leaning at an angle that spoke of sudden disaster. She moved closer and saw them. 2 figures pressed together against the side, trying to hold on to what little warmth remained. Mr. Gable and his wife. Their eyes widened when they saw the lantern. Shock, disbelief, hope. There was no time for words. She pulled them up, guided them, half-carried them through the storm. Every step back felt longer than the journey out, her strength fading, her body fighting. But she did not stop, because now it was not just her life. When they finally reached the cabin, but the door closed behind them like a barrier against death itself, inside, warmth wrapped around them, silence returned. Life returned. Mr. Gable stood there, breathing hard, staring at everything. The fire, the walls, the structure. Then Analise led them into the cave, and everything changed. His eyes moved slowly. The sheep, alive. The chickens, safe. The water, clear. The plants, growing. His mouth opened, but no words came, because there was nothing left to deny. This was not a mistake. This was not foolishness. This was something far greater. He turned to her, his voice breaking under the weight of realization. "We were wrong." The words came slowly, heavy, honest. "We called you a fool." Analise said nothing. She simply handed him a bowl of warm stew, because she did not need to prove anything anymore. Well, she had already done it. The storm raged for 3 days. 3 long days of wind and white and endless noise. But inside, life continued. The fire burned. The animals lived. The food lasted. And something else changed. The people who once doubted her watched her. They saw the system, the discipline, the quiet strength behind every choice, and when the storm finally ended, the world outside was buried, silent, transformed. But the story did not end there, because what those 3 people carried back to Silver Creek was not just survival, it was truth. The story spread through the town like fire. The useless cave, the foolish girl, the grave in the rock, all of it, gone. In its place, a new story. A woman who saw what others missed. A home that turned winter into shelter. A mind that understood survival better than anyone. When spring came, people did not come to pity her. They came to trade. Seeds, tools, supplies, respect. Not given freely, earned. Analise stood outside one evening, watching the snow melt into the earth, the air soft again, full of promise. Her land was no longer empty. It was alive. And she knew something now that most people never learn. What looks useless often holds the greatest power. You just have to see it before anyone else does, and have the courage to build your life around it. If this story moved you, take a moment to like the video and subscribe for more stories of strength, survival, and the quiet courage that changes everything.